All right, let's unpack this. We have tackled some pretty dense topics on this show: economic theories, historical biographies, complex science. But today we are doing something a little different. We're looking at a piece of source material that frames itself as the ultimate life hack, but not for productivity, not for fitness. It is a strategy for living what the text calls a king's life.
It is a strategy. Yeah, that's one word for it.
That is a very diplomatic way to put it. We are looking at a text titled The Logical Fallacy of the Ugly Wife. Now, right off the bat, that title is doing a lot of work. It sounds academic, almost philosophical. But when you get into it, it reads more like a rhythmic argument. It's lyrical, it's repetitive.
It's highly stylized, absolutely. It's almost like a street poem or a song.
Yeah.
But underneath that rhyme scheme, it's presenting a very cold, very cynical piece of relationship advice. It sets up this logic for happiness that feels airtight, and then it just shows you exactly how that logic blows up in your face.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to deconstruct this. We're not here to give dating advice. Please do not take this as dating advice. But we want to unpack the logic here because it sets up a perfect plan for a secure marriage, and then it completely dismantles it.
Exactly. It's basically a case study in how trying to game the system of human emotion, well, it usually backfires. It's a two-part argument, almost a little tragedy in two acts. Part one is the setup. Here's the logical case for marrying based on looks, or a lack of them, to get security. Part one says, this is how you win.
And part two?
Part two is the crash course in unintended consequences. Part two says, and here's why you lose.
So let's start with that thesis, the king's life strategy. The source opens with this really bold, absolute proposition. It says, if you want to be happy and live a king's life, never make a pretty woman your wife. No gray area there.
None at all. It's a binary worldview. You have two camps. Pretty equals danger, ugly equals safety. The text argues that from a logical point of view, and it keeps using that word logic, you're better off marrying a woman who is, to put it bluntly, uglier than you.
And it gets really specific about the risks, about the pretty wife. And this is where you get a peek into the narrator's whole psychology. The text says a pretty woman makes her husband look small, that she will very often cause his downfall.
That phrase, look small, that's the key to this whole first section. We're talking about deep-seated status anxiety. He isn't just worried about cheating, he's worried about diminishment? That it's a zero-sum game of attention.
Right. If she's the prize, he's just the accessory.
Exactly. If everyone's looking at her, then nobody is looking at the king. It's insecurity just masked as strategy.
100%. And the text suggests this downfall isn't, a slow burn. It's fast. The source has this very specific, almost funny detail. It says, just when you think she's belonging to you, she's calling somebody else doo-doo.
Doo-doo.
Doo-doo. I mean, we have to stop on that phrase because it's so jarring. It's not darling. It's not honey. It's doo-doo.
It implies this secret, silly, intimate language that he's not a part of. It represents exclusion. And notice the obsession with ownership just when you think she's belonging to you.
Yeah.
The fear is that a pretty woman can never truly be owned because the market demand for her is just too high. She has leverage. So the logical solution, according to the text, is to remove the leverage.
You remove the market demand, you pivot, you go for the safe asset.
Right.
And the source promises all these benefits if you marry a woman uglier than you. It says she'll never behave in a way that makes the neighbors laugh. So no social embarrassment.
Leads right back to that status anxiety. The king must never be laughed at. He's hyper aware of public perception. He wants a wife who's basically invisible so that he can be the main character.
Exactly. And then you get the domestic payoff, the carrot on the stick. The text says she will cook and she'll look in the oven for you. And the big one, the holy grail of this whole strategy, you better believe she'll be faithful and true.
And that's the core assumption. It's a purely transactional view of the relationship. The logic relies entirely on this idea that a lack of conventional beauty equals a lack of options. He believes that if she feels lucky to have him, she'll dedicate her life to serving him. She literally can't stray.
It sounds like an infomercial. If you make an ugly woman your wife, you can be sure you'll be happy for life. Buy now and we'll throw in eternal happiness for free.
And just like most infomercials, the product doesn't quite work as advertised. This is where the trap is set. Because applying that kind of logic to human emotions, it usually fails. The fortress he's built is on a foundation of sand.
And this is the turn. The whole source text shifts gears and introduces the flaw in the plan. It says, ugly don't mean she stays faithful and true.
The premise just collapses.
And it collapses because of a variable the husband never put into his little spreadsheet: his wife's own psychology. The text says she might not know she's ugly.
This is such a fantastic point. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect of attractiveness, or maybe just healthy self-esteem. We don't see ourselves through the eyes of some critical partner. The text says she looks in the mirror and thinks she's a 10.
I think she's a 10 in the mirror, for goodness sake.
You could just hear the exasperation in the narrator's voice. He's baffled. He married her because he thought she'd be humble, but instead she struts like a model, confidence high as the sky.
Confidence. That's the variable he didn't account for. He thought he was marrying a set of physical features, or a lack of them, but he married a person. And if that person has high self-esteem, they aren't going to act grateful. They're going to act like they're the prize. And here's the kicker: confidence creates its own gravity.
Meaning confidence is attractive in itself. Even if she doesn't fit the husband's narrow standard, her behavior signals value. And so the husband is sitting there thinking, she's safe, no other guy would want her. But the source warns him about the market disruption. The thirsty bachelor.
The thirsty bachelor. I love that term. It sounds like a horror movie villain for this specific guy. The text puts it so bluntly: ugly to you means jackpot to some dude.
That's the line that just destroys the entire argument. Beauty is subjective. Attraction is subjective. His whole security system was based on this idea that everyone agrees his wife is undesirable. But the source points out, some thirsty bachelor sees her in a different light.
It's that old saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. I know that's a horrible way to talk about people, but structurally, that's the fear.
Structurally, yes. It's market arbitrage. The husband undervalued the asset. His wife and the thirsty bachelor sees an opportunity.
And this bachelor is willing to act on it. The text says this other guy is willing to be rude, meaning he'll cross boundaries, make a move. So the husband's entire calculation is just proven false. The demand exists, he just failed to see it because of his own bias.
Exactly. He was too busy trying to control his asset to see its actual value.
So now the husband has a wife with confidence and options. But the source takes it a step darker. We move from just simple attraction to something more vindictive. We have to talk about the secret.
This is the most fragile part of the whole King's Life strategy. The source says, if you want that security, all you got to do is keep her in the dark.
You have to lie. You have to make sure she never finds out the truth of the thing, which is that you married her because you thought she was ugly and therefore safe.
Just think about the emotional weight of that. The foundation of the marriage isn't love. It's not even partnership. It's a deceptive containment strategy. It's gaslighting by omission. And the source warns that if she finds out, your whole damn logic will fall apart.
And of course, in this story, she finds out. Someone tells her the score. They tell her, girl, he married you because you're not a bore. Which implies he settled for your personality because he didn't want the risk of a pretty face.
It's the ultimate insult. It invalidates the entire relationship. It tells her, I didn't choose you, I chose safety. And that's the catalyst for the revenge phase. The text gets visceral here. It says, now she's mad as hell, self-esteem on the floor.
But wait, her self-esteem hits the floor, but her reaction isn't to withdraw, it's to lash out. It says she hits the club specifically looking to even the score.
This is crucial. She's not cheating because she fell in love. She's not cheating because she was seduced. She's cheating to reassert her power. The husband tried to define her as lesser, and now she's using her sexuality to prove that she is more. It's reactive infidelity. It's pure vengeance.
And she finds someone immediately. The text introduces the one-night stand cowboy.
Another great archetype. We had the thirsty bachelor, now the one-night stand cowboy.
Right, and this cowboy don't care about her face. He just wants the action quick in his plate.
He's the foil to the husband. The husband overthought everything, strategizes marriage like a game of chess. The cowboy. He doesn't care about logic or long-term value. He just wants the moment. And the wife, fueled by revenge in her veins, gives it up easy.
The irony is just so thick. The husband is sitting at home, probably thinking his brilliant plan is working. The text says, while you're home thinking my logic remains. Meanwhile, she's out destroying the marriage, specifically because of the logic he used to build it.
The logic itself is the cause of the betrayal. That is the paradox. If he'd married her for who she was, there'd be no secret to keep, no score to even. But because he married her as a safety measure, he created a ticking time bomb.
This leads us to the reality check. The source material starts to wrap up by basically saying, look, you can't outsmart human nature. It says logic cuts both ways.
It does, and it brings up a really raw point. The text argues, deep down, in the back of your head, beauty is bullshit. It's all in the bed.
That is a direct challenge to the whole initial premise. The premise was beauty matters so much it ruins your life. Now it's saying beauty is bullshit.
It seems to be saying that once the lights are out, or once the relationship is intimate, those external aesthetics matter a lot less than the actual connection, or the action, as the text puts it. It's essentially saying that biology overrides strategy. When the bedroom door closes, the logic of facial aesthetics becomes kind of irrelevant.
And we have to talk about that line on modern vulnerability. It's brief, but it is so powerful. One text later, your kingdom is shot.
That's the killing blow to the king's life. We don't live in a village anymore. It doesn't matter if you lock the tower. Everyone has a smartphone in the tower.
Even ugly gets options. Yeah, that's the truth, man. That's the line. It completely democratizes the risk.
It does. It basically says there's no such thing as a safe partner if your definition of safety is based on them having no other choice but you. The barriers to entry for infidelity have never been lower. So relying on a lack of duty as a firewall, it's completely obsolete.
So let's look at the final verdict from the source. It sums it up pretty ruthlessly. Marrying ugly ain't bulletproof.
It's not. The source admits that maybe if she stays clueless, maybe the plan works. She cooks, she cleans, never steps out the door. But it's describing a fragile, anxious existence. It's not a king's life. It's a prison warden's life.
Right, because the text says, better hope she stays blind or you're through. You're just living on borrowed time. You're a fraud waiting to be exposed.
And that's the ultimate failure of the logic. The goal was peace of mind. But by marrying for strategy, he creates a scenario where he has to constantly worry about being found out. He swapped one anxiety for another.
So if we look at the source as a whole, it starts with this confident swagger, I've cracked the code, and it ends with this paranoid realization that an ugly wife can still cheat on you.
It's a journey from arrogance to, well, resignation. The logical point of view turns out to be a logical fallacy because it treats the wife as a static object, an appliance, and not a dynamic person who thinks and feels and reacts.
It's really a dismantling of the idea that you can control your happiness by controlling your partner.
Precisely. You're trying to engineer a human relationship like you'd engineer bridge. But people aren't concrete and steel. You can't engineer out the human element.
It really makes you think about the lengths people go to just to avoid vulnerability. The narrator is so afraid of being hurt that he constructs this elaborate, insulting plan, only to find out he can still be hurt just as badly.
And maybe even worse.
Yeah.
Because there's a specific sting in being cheated on by the person you consider your safe bet. The text captures that irony perfectly. Ugly wife still can make a fool out of you. That feels even more foolish than if he'd just taken the risk in the first place.
Right. If you marry the pretty woman and she leaves, you can say, well, I knew the risks. But if you marry the safe option and she leaves, you played yourself.
You played yourself completely. You compromised on your own desires for a security that didn't even exist.
It's a fascinating, if a bit cynical, look at human nature. The source material is gritty, it's rhythmic, and it really pulls no punches.
And it reminds us that logic in love is often just a fancy word for fear. We use logic to try to protect ourselves from the chaos of intimacy, but the chaos always finds a way in.
That is a powerful place to land. We started with a mission to unpack the logic of the ugly wife, and I think we found that the logic is essentially a house of cards.
A house of cards built on a foundation of doo-doo.
We are never going to forget that line.
It stays with you.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the logical fallacy of the ugly wife. It's a text that promises a king's life but delivers a very different reality.
Indeed. It teaches us you can't hack your way to a faithful marriage. There are no shortcuts.
We want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We've talked a lot about the failure of this safe strategy, but consider this. If the safe option isn't actually safe, and if settling for someone you see as lesser guarantees nothing but resentment and revenge, does this source material actually prove, in a very roundabout way, that the only truly logical choice is to marry for genuine connection? Is the real logical fallacy the belief that you can ever control another person's behavior through your choice of partner?
It's the ultimate variable you can't solve for.
Something to think about. Thank you for listening, learning, and diving deep with us today.
See you next time.